Hello, this is Jenny. If you are looking for the Wildflower program for the Sherburne National Wildlife Refuge, you are in the right spot. I did start a couple minutes early so that people could actually find this. I know there were a couple questions about being able to find it, so hopefully you will be able to find it just fine. And we will wait a couple minutes just so that people can find us, and then I'll start on time so that you can get on your way in a half an hour. So welcome to the Sherburne National Wildlife Refuge Wildflowers program. This does replace the Wildflower tour that we normally would have had, but unfortunately we can't have that this spring, so we decided to do this instead. We'll see how it goes. This will be the first Facebook Live for me, and I think it might be the first Facebook Live for the refuge or the Friends of the Refuge. I'm not sure. Hi, Elena. It's good to see that it looks like people are able to get on and find it, which is awesome. We'll wait just a minute or two here just to make sure that people get on it and we start on time. I hope everyone is doing well today. Looks like a really nice day today compared to Monday. It was a little warm on Monday, but that's all right. It's kind of almost summer anyways, so. Hello, Mary. It's nice to see that you made it on for our little program here. Just check the time. So good. It looks like there's a lot of people that have been able to find it. Good morning, Joni. Nice to see that you made it on. All right, I think we will get started. So my name is Jenny Hengel. I am the part-time naturalist contractor at the Sherburne National Wildlife Refuge. I'm actually contracted to the Friends group of the Sherburne National Wildlife Refuge. And if you just popped on, this is the Wildflower program at Sherburne National Wildlife Refuge. I do have a person moderating the comments for me, since it looks like there might be quite a few people that hop on here. So if I miss anything, hopefully she'll be able to do it. And that is Elena Larkin. She is actually our Visitor Services Manager. And I'm so happy she was able to be here and do it. Hello, Myrna, Mitch, Pat. Good to see you. So I think we'll get started with the program here. Awesome that everybody was able to make it. And I'm just going to flip my screen so that you can actually see my program here. And again, I know I already said this, but we're going to talk about some of the wildflowers that are currently blooming at the Sherburne National Wildlife Refuge on the Wildlife Drive, which is an awesome place to be. So I just wanted to start with a little general piece of information here. Sherburne National Wildlife Refuge's Wildlife Drive and the refuge in general has a lot of different wildflowers, and it's really cool because you can see wet wildflowers, you can see dry wildflowers, ones that like to bloom in the shade or full sun or in between. There are a lot of seasonal blooms, so spring, summer, fall, you will see many different flowers blooming, which is super awesome. And a lot of the flowers, fortunately or unfortunately, only bloom for short periods of time. So maybe 2 weeks for some flowers, maybe up to a month or two for other flowers. So they're not there for very long, but they are super pretty while they are there. And I like that it's cyclical, so you can see different things different times of the year. The other thing, and I guess technically poison ivies might be a wildflower, most people don't consider it that. I just wanted to let you know that there is quite a bit of poison ivy growing on the refuge off the trails, and sometimes just along the trails. So if you have any allergies to poison ivy, or you're not sure, I would say try to stay on the trail and the road. That'll be your best bet to avoid it. And I have a couple pictures of poison ivy here in case some people are a little unsure about identification. Often poison ivy has kind of a woody stem, and you'll notice here with this one, the middle leaf kind of has a longer stem when it connects to the other two leaves, which is a pretty good indicator. Although if you are unsure, I would say just don't walk in it, and then you won't have any problems. So, I know that learning flowers can be intimidating for some people. It was for me when I first started. But the awesome thing about it is you can learn a few at a time. Good morning from Iowa, Henrietta. Awesome. So if you learn a couple at a time, it's easier to start learning them more. Some flowers are really distinct and you can't mess them up with other flowers, which makes them easier to learn. If you are looking at trying to ID a plant, important characteristics to look at are like the number of petals, the flower color, the shape of the flower, what the leaves look like, maybe the habitat that you see it in. Is it in a wetland? Is it in a woodland? And the time that it is blooming is an important one too. And if you can't ID one, that's certainly fine. I still find flowers that I am unsure of. The nice thing about it is that we have resources we can use to identify these flowers. The first resource I have on here is Minnesota Wildflowers. This is probably one of the best websites I've ever seen for this. They have tons and tons of plants on there, lots of wildflowers. They also have shrubs, trees, ferns, that kind of thing on there. The cool thing is you can search by flower color. You can search by the month the plant is blooming. You can do an advanced search for more detailed things, which is super helpful for me. I use this website a lot when I'm trying to find things. And they do have an app that you can get for your phone too. I tend to just use their website like through Safari. It's a super awesome website. The second source I have here, and I know we're in Minnesota, why on earth am I mentioning Illinois Wildflowers? This site actually has quite a lot of the flowers we have here. Some of them we don't have, but I usually use this one because they have a cool section for each plant called faunal associations, and that's just a fancy word for saying you can see what animals interact with this plant. So the pollinators, like butterflies and bees, you can see what animals eat it, what animals maybe don't eat it, and why they don't eat it, if the plant is toxic, that kind of thing. And it's super cool. The other one I have not used as much, iNaturalist and Seek. So iNaturalist is a free website. You just have to make a profile, and then you can put photos into iNaturalist with locations. If you know what the thing is, the item is, you can put the identification in there. Otherwise, there's other people on the site that can identify for you. And it is super cool. I wanted to talk about the Seek app just a tiny bit here, because I just got this on my phone and it's really cool. You can literally upload pictures to it for ID, or you can in real time like scan the plant or creature you're looking at, and it can get pretty close to species, if not getting the species, which is really cool. I always say if you use Seek, use it with a grain of salt, because sometimes they get the ID wrong, or sometimes they can't get to species on it. So oftentimes I'll just go to Minnesota Wildflowers to figure that out. And field guides. A lot of people do use field guides. I personally don't use my field guide as much. Mine's kind of a Wildflowers of North America guide. It's from the National Wildlife Federation. But it's kind of a cool book. It does sort by flower color and shape at the beginning so that you can find other plants, but it's kind of up to you what kind of a field guide you want. If you like to sort your flowers by color when you're looking at them, then get a field guide that sorts it by color for you. If you like to do it by similar plants grouped together, you can do that. You can get a field guide for that too. I would say, if you can, go to a bookstore or somehow peruse books, maybe ask a friend if they have some too, and just see how they work for you. Some of them are black and white, and if you want color, get one with color, because that makes it way easier to ID for some people. And really quick, before we get into the flowers that I'm really excited to talk about, I just wanted to give a couple tips and tricks so that you can see more when you're on the wildlife drive. The first thing you probably want to do is drive slow. Some of these flowers can be kind of hard to see, so if you drive slower, you'll be able to see them. Not to mention, sometimes there's snakes and other reptiles that like to stay on the road, so you can avoid them by driving slow. I would say keep on the trails and roadway as much as possible. That way you're not trampling plants that aren't flowering yet. If there is a flower that is far away and you cannot see it, I would bring your binoculars with you, because then you can look at them through your binoculars and maybe figure out what it is. If you are getting out to see a certain plant or an animal, make sure you pull to the side of the road as far as you can so that other people can pass you if they're looking to go to maybe like the Stickney Pool Eagle's Nest or something like that. The best times to see flowers are usually sunny days in the morning, so between 9 and noon are probably your best times when it's sunny. Oftentimes, if it's cloudy or in the evening, some plants will actually close up their flowers, so it's harder to see them. You have to look a little harder if you're going to do that. I recommend visiting the wildlife drive at least once every season. The flowers do change a lot, and it's kind of cool to see the changes in the different flowers, and of course you'll end up learning more flowers as well. I highly recommend taking photos home with you. The refuge actually does not allow the collecting of flowers or seeds. We like to keep those plants there so that animals can use them, so pollinators can pollinate them, so herbivores can come through and eat what they need to eat so that they have the amount of food that they need. But I suggest taking as many photos as you possibly can. The more photos you take, the better you will be at IDing your plant if you're going to use the photos. And if you are going to use photos to ID, which I often do, try to get a picture of the flower, a picture of the leaves, and a picture of the stem, and maybe jot some notes down as to where you found that plant, because it'll make it way easier for you to ID. Now, I have several photos of the plants today, and I just wanted to let you know that David Halgrimson, who is a volunteer at Sherburne and a very good photographer, gave some of his photos for use here. Those ones will be outlined in white. I hope you can see the white. The other photos I actually went out and took on Monday. So the flowers that I show should still be blooming today. Some of them bloom for short periods of time, so I would recommend getting out maybe this weekend or early next week so that you can see some of these flowers. We also have an awesome map made by Ashley Biggs, who is our visitor services intern, with locations, and I will be mentioning these locations or during the presentation for some of the flowers. Now, a lot of these flowers can be found at other places along the drive too. Krista, thank you for that suggestion of the field guide. That's awesome. And as I go, I will mention where everything is located. And we will post this map on the Friends Facebook page, which is super helpful, I think, so that you can see it, so you don't have to watch me do this presentation again just to find the map. And the locations are obviously on the right side there in description form as well. So we will get into the flowers, and of course this is our first flower. I have 8 flowers to talk about today, so hopefully I can get through them. Our first flower, and I will probably say that most of these flowers are my favorites because I love flowers, but is Canada anemone. Another name for it is meadow anemone. As you can see with the flowers here, they're pretty big. They're like 1 inch or 1.5 inches, so they're pretty big flowers. They have 5 white petals that are relatively round. There might be some notches in the top of at the ends of the petals, and it has that nice pretty yellow center. Each leaf, and it might be kind of hard to see them, but this leaf might be the best example. That's actually all one leaf. It's just deeply divided into several different lobes, which makes it relatively easy to identify, although it kind of looks like some of the other flowers we have out here, so if it's blooming, that is certainly very helpful. This plant only gets like 1 to 2 feet tall. It's not very tall. And you'll find it, and obviously you can see this picture here. It doesn't do bad in part sun. It certainly likes full sun too. I've seen it on other parts of the refuge. It just, generally speaking, likes moist areas. So if you're in a really dry area, you could see this plant, but it's very unlikely. So you want to look at areas where it is wet. Now, location. This is actually one of the trails at the Welcome Station. It's called the Burr Oak Trail, and this flower can be found on the east side of the trail. And I'll show a short video in just a second here so you can get an idea. I also saw some of it along some of the pools and wetlands, kind of on the side of the road there, so you'll find it out there too. And I will just quick play this video, and I'm gonna just go up a little ways because the plant was further in than I thought it was when I started recording. So as you walk, and I am going, so if you look at the Welcome Station, if you go to the right along the path, and you'll see there's a little concrete pad there too, so if you're close to that, you know you've either just passed it walking the other way or you're almost there. And you'll notice all the little white things are the flowers, and it's kind of awesome because it grows with underground stems, so it can form a pretty thick colony of flowers. So usually if you see one, yes, exactly, Cynthia, it does spread. which is probably good for the flower, but not necessarily great for your garden sometimes. Our next flower is another one of my favorites, and probably one of a lot of people's favorites. This is large flowered penstemon. It's also called large flowered beard tongue or large beard tongue. And if you notice, and I guess it might be kind of hard to see, I think the reason they call them beard tongue is because if you notice, it has 3 petals on the bottom, which kind of looks like a beard. And then part of the female part of the flower actually sticks out a little bit, which kind of looks like a tongue. So I can totally see how they would give it the name beard tongue. And all of its flowers are pretty big and tubular in shape. They have 2 petals on top and 3 on the bottom. And they're typically this pinky purple color. They can be a little lighter than this and maybe a teeny bit darker. But that is a good indicator you're looking for it. The leaves are very distinctive. So they're kind of this bluey green color. To me, they almost look like succulent leaves. So kind of that thicker leaf, and they're very round. So they're pretty easy to see if you're actually out there looking for it. And this plant, it gets maybe 1 to 3.5 feet tall, so it's a little bit taller than our first plant. And it only blooms for a short period of time, so this is a very short blooming plant. So if you want to see this one, I'd say get out in the next couple of days and you will probably see it. And it likes full sun and dry areas, so you're going to be looking for this in the upland dry areas on the Wildlife Drive. Our second stop, that's where this one is located, is actually still on the 2-way part of the trail. It does go one way eventually. It's just a little bit past, there's like a water control structure. It kind of almost looks like a creek that goes by. It's a little bit past that, and if you get to a post with orange flagging, you've gone too far, so you can back up a little bit. It's on the right side of the road. Katie, do most flowers have male and female flowers? Many of them do, some of them don't. It certainly just depends on the flower. Most of the flowers I talk about here have both male and female parts, but some of them, especially in like you get into shrubs and stuff, they have lots of just male or female plants instead of both in one. So a cool thing about this plant, it has those really long tubular flowers, right? Well, some bees, instead of going in the front way, they decide to cut near the base of it, so they kind of cheat and get into it, which is kind of cool. I don't know if it's considered cheating or not. Obviously the flower is not getting pollinated because the bee didn't go in there correctly, but it's good for the bee. And yeah, so I'll show the little video so you can kind of get an idea of where it is. And that you would be going that way into the drive. I was actually leaving when I took this video, but it's on the right side, and it's not a very huge pollinating plant, so you'll find pieces of them here and there, flowers like that, but there it is. And Monday it was really super windy, so I'm sorry about the wind in it, but we deal with what we have there. And prairie smoke, I'll try to mention in a second because it's actually past bloom, but it's seeding. There's a decent spot to see a little patch of it, and I'll mention that too in a little bit. So hoary puccoon is our next plant. This is kind of a cool plant. The flowers are usually yellow or yellow-orange. There's 5 little petals, and they actually fuse together and form a little tube behind that, so they are technically considered tubular flowers. And the leaves are kind of long and narrow, and the whole plant is pretty fuzzy, except for the flowers. So you can actually feel this one. It's a little rough to fuzzy, which is kind of fun. This plant is pretty short. It only gets to like 1.5 feet tall, and a lot of plants are shorter than that. Luckily, it has these really bright flowers, so it's actually relatively easy to see. And this is another plant, just like showy penstemon, that likes the sun and likes it dry. So the dry areas is where you are going to find it. And a good spot, and I don't have a video for it yet because I actually have it with the other flower that we're going to talk about next. But stop number 3 is a good spot, and this is the one you see a post with orange flagging on it. You are at the spot, and you want to go a little bit north of that, and there's some on the right side, but most of it's on the left side, and you'll see that in just a second. Now this one certainly is a crowd pleaser here at the refuge, wild lupin. Another name for it is actually sundial lupin because it will orient its leaves and follow the sun as it goes. There are some other flowers that do that as well. And it has these really pretty, has a spike of really pretty purple flowers. And they're actually, so they're considered pea-shaped, which I know sounds weird, but they're actually grouped together with peas and beans because they have very similar flowers and very similar seed pods. The leaves, which you can see right over here, this is actually all one leaf. All these little individual guys are called leaflets. You can call them leaves if you want to, but technically they're leaflets. There's like 7 to 11 of them on each group. These are very distinctive leaves. Not very many other plants look like this one, including the flowers on the refuge too. There are some other pea plants, but they don't look as similar to wild lupin. This plant is short too, might get to 2 feet tall, and the blooms will get it that way. The leaves usually make it a little shorter than that. This is a plant that loves it dry, so it will be with the hoary puccoon and the showy penstemon, which is super awesome. This is kind of a cool plant. If you've ever heard of the Karner blue butterfly, the caterpillar actually eats the leaves of this, and it's the only plant that caterpillar uses, and that butterfly is actually endangered. So these plants are there to help them survive. And of course, everybody knows, well, not everybody, but a lot of people know that last year we had a super bloom of wild lupin, an enormous amount of flowers. The blooms were pretty good this year, but they weren't anything compared to last year. That was kind of a special time of the year. Now this plant is actually kind of past peak this year already, and it's starting to seed out. So you notice these seeds here? They kind of look like pea pods. If you find those, you are looking at wild lupin. And those seeds actually the pods will dry up and they'll burst open and fling the seeds away from the parent plant, which is one of the ways it spreads. And this one you can also see with the hoary puccoon at stop 3. And I was going to mention with the prairie smoke, there is a small patch of prairie smoke on the left side that's already seeded out. I would say you could look up what that plant looks like and you will see what it looks like seeded out. It's actually a really neat plant. What butterfly eats lupin? That's a good question, Patty. Generally speaking, it would be the caterpillar that eats lupin, and I know the Karner blue butterfly caterpillar eats it. I'm not sure what other butterflies might eat it. And some butterflies will visit the flowers, of course, but several different species will do that. It's not just the Karner blue. So I'll play the video, and this will have hoary puccoon and wild lupin in it. And there's a post with the flagging. And I'm walking in, like you're driving into the wildlife drive, and this is on the left side. The first flower you will see here is the lupin. There it is. Kind of a sweet little plant. And again, the blooms you'll see, but they're here and there. And then we'll show the hoary puccoon. So they grow pretty close to each other. And this isn't the only place to see these flowers either. They're definitely, a lot of them blooming, especially on the first part of Wildlife Drive before you get to the Oak Savannah Trail, is a pretty good place to see puccoon and the lupin as well. So, prairie rose is our next plant. A lot of people love roses, so it's kind of cool to see that we have some roses here. This plant is also called wild rose. The flowers are obviously pink. They can be kind of light pink or white very rarely, into the deep pink color. They have 5 petals, and oftentimes they kind of have wavy edges on them. This is a pretty big flower. It can be like between 1 and 2 inches. So it's very showy and very easy to see. The leaves are very typical of rose leaves. This whole piece here with the little leaflets, again, we go back to the word leaflets, is kind of considered the whole leaf, but you can also say that it's just one leaf, each individual leaf. But they usually have 9 to 11 leaflets. The flower is a pretty good indicator that you're looking at the right thing. Yes, these stems do have thorns, just like cultivated roses. So be aware of that. You know, if you don't want to get stabbed, don't grab the plant. This plant can be seen oftentimes in prairies and woodland edges. It tolerates wetness quite a bit better than, say, wild lupin, but it can also be in dry areas too. These ones can also form colonies, kind of like the Canada anemone, although they're shrubs. Technically, they are woody, so they might not be as thick as the Canada anemone, but they are certainly out there. There are actually 2 good places to see wild wild rose or prairie rose. If you are traveling past spot 3, you'll take that first sharp right. They're along the straight area there before you take the first sharp left. And they're on both sides. And if you miss them there, that's okay. If you keep going, if you are in between Big Blue Stem Pool and Nelson Pool, there's also a really good spot to see them on both sides as well. The video I will show you is actually from spot 5, although spot 4 also has these flowers. So we'll do that. And that would be the direction you would be headed on the wildlife drive. So this is on the right side. And I wish my videos were a little better because it's kind of hard to see some of the flowers until I actually walk up to them. But there's a few flowers there. Brent, does that prairie rose produce rose hips? Yes, as a matter of fact, they do produce rose hips, which are the fruit seed. They're like little red berries. And a lot of animals like to eat that, including turkeys. And our next flower is wild columbine. This is another really popular plant that people love. The flower is obviously a big hanging bell-shaped flower, red on the outside with yellow on the inside. The leaves, and unfortunately I didn't get the best picture of the leaves, but there's actually 3 little leaflets on here, and they all have rounded edges to them. It's a pretty distinct plant, and the stem is actually pretty dark, which is a pretty good indicator. This plant only gets like 1 to 3 feet tall. The flower usually is what pushes it to 3 feet. This is actually a woodland plant, although the video I'm going to show you, this was in full sun. I guess some of the older, more mature plants are able to tolerate more sun. This one is a good flower. Hummingbirds actually like to visit this flower because it's kind of got that nice long tube and it's pretty easy for them to access. All they have to do is tip their head up to get their beak into it. And this plant, unfortunately, or fortunately, is actually past peak as well. It is starting to produce seed. This is one of the seed heads, so if you see that, you're probably looking at columbine. Let's see. Okay, so this plant, and the location I have, this is location 6, which is basically next to Nelson Pool. If you're driving, so it's on the left side, and I'll show you the video of it so you can kind of get an idea. And you would be traveling the direction I'm turning, so you'd be traveling that way as you go. And you're going to try to look for the red flowers. Again, these ones are kind of past peak, so they may not be blooming for very much longer, but you can look for the leaves. The leaves are relatively distinctive, and those seed pods are pretty distinctive too. And columbine can be found in the wooded areas as well. If you look around a little bit, you will probably be able to find them. Luckily, American white water lily was blooming, so last week I had gone out to see what was blooming, and they were not blooming, but on Monday they were blooming, which is super awesome. These plants are super cool. A lot of people know what water lilies look like. This flower can get up to 6 inches in diameter, which is pretty huge. Up to 30 petals can be found on these, and obviously they have that beautiful yellow center surrounded by white. This apparently smells very fragrant. I did not really get close to it to know if it smelled fragrant. But if you find it on another slow-moving lake or backwaters of a river, you could probably smell that too. Your leaves are obviously your typical lily pad. They're round with that deep notch in it. Sometimes they curl up depending on what other vegetation is growing. And these plants, well, they get like 8 feet tall, but what I mean by that is they can go into 8 foot deep of water. They like full sun. Obviously, these ones are blooming out on Nelson Pond. And they like slow-moving water. So you're not going to see them on fast-flowing rivers unless it's a backwater area of the river. And I said, like I said, they're on Nelson Pool, so the left side as you're coming up, and it's a little bit past the columbine. So this would be spot 7 on the map. And this would be a binocular plant, and I'm saying that because it is really far away, and the best way to see it is to pull out your binoculars and look at them. You're not going to be able to get down to them. They float on the water. You might as well just look with your binoculars. And the next plant is wild geranium. This is one of my favorite plants. It's super pretty. A lot of people like it. Obviously the flowers are kind of pinky lavender with kind of that light, very light yellow center. The leaves are pretty big and they look very similar to Canada anemone. They tend to be bigger leaves though, and their divisions aren't as narrow, technically speaking. But if you see this one blooming, it cannot be mistaken for Canada anemone. As far as I know, this flower has not been seen white, but you never know. Sometimes plants surprise us. This plant only gets like 1 to 2 feet tall, and again, the bloom kind of goes up above it. It usually gets you that 2 feet. This is a woodland plant. You'll find it mostly in part shade. I don't think it tolerates full sun very well, but sometimes these plants do surprise you. This one is visited by a lot of different pollinators, and you'll see that in our video. We actually have a little pollinator visitor that decided to land on the flower while I was taping. And this, I have 2 locations, 2 really good locations to see this plant. The first one is location 8. It's basically just as you're going to enter the woodlands. And it's on, most of it's on the left side. There's a little bit on the right side too. Or if you go a little further as you're exiting the woodland area, so this is past the woodland trail, it's going to be on your left again, but there's a huge spot of it. Basically like the whole ditch area there is just full of them. And this one is kind of starting to seed out too. So you want to kind of look, you know, in the next few days to maybe a week, there might be a flower or 2 here. You can also look for the seed pods, which are these long, narrow pods. And these guys, as they mature, they will dry out and they actually burst open and fling the seeds to spread the plant, which I think is really cool. It's kind of like the jewel weed, which also does the same thing, but you can touch that one and it explodes. So I'll show the video. We'll see here. So that would be the way you came from, and you would be headed into the woods this way. And I'm on the left side of the road here. And here is the wild geranium, and that is a little teeny green sweat bee that decided to visit, which is super cool. And I will note that we are getting pretty close to the half-hour mark. I have 1 more flower to go through if you want to stick around. I understand if you do need to leave, so thanks for attending if you do need to duck out. Our last flower is blue flag iris, and this would be found at spot 10. This is another binocular plant because it is pretty close to Stickney Pool and a little ways away from the road. The flowers are really big and showy. They got 3 main petals on them that are purple with yellow. Sometimes they're reddish purple. They're very rarely pale blue. The leaves are kind of sword-like and really narrow. So those are pretty good indication. This one is a shoreline wet meadow type area. So you're going to find it on shorelines in full sun, a little bit of shade it can tolerate. It is also visited by hummingbirds, as far as I know. I have not actually witnessed it, but it would be really cool to see that. And this one is, it's like 500 yards or a football field away from where the one-way goes back into a two-way. Which is really awesome. And it's kind of, as you go, it's past the Stickney Pool Eagle's Nest, kind of that last pond area. And it is dotted here and there. It's not in a huge clump. And I'll show the video really quick here, just so we can get it. And this would be the direction you would be heading. And I'm probably going to pause it since the flowers are kind of hard to see. And I do zoom a little bit just so you can... So basically there's one here, there's one here. So you can kind of see them blowing a little bit in the wind. And you can see them better too when you're actually there. So let me put this back to me. Oh, how common is blue flag iris? That is a good question. I am not sure. I think it just is in patches here and there. I haven't seen it along every pond. And it is a slow spreader. So even if you see it, it might be in a smaller group. So, hello. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Wildflower program. This was my first Facebook Live and it was super awesome to be with you here. Please enjoy the self-guided tour if you would like to do that. We will have the map posted on the Friends Facebook page. And I'd like to do just a really quick thank you to Robin DeLong and Mitch Elness. They kind of helped me find the flowers here, and normally they would have run the in-person Wildflower tour, but unfortunately we weren't able to have that. I'd like to thank Sue Hicks and Elena Larkin for helping me practice the Facebook Live so that I didn't do super terribly during this. And of course, Ashley Biggs for making this super awesome map. She put a lot of work into it, so it's really cool that we get to see it and that you get to use it. So have a super wonderful weekend. It was awesome spending time with you. Lynn, Eric, Roberta, thank you so much, and thanks for attending. Please enjoy the plants out there, and you probably could comment if you want to on the Friends page to let us know what's still blooming there. Thank you so much. Again, have a wonderful weekend.